You ever feel like art YouTube is kind of trash? Well, truth is it can be if you don't know what you're doing. So today we're going to talk about how to not waste your time in this chaos that is art YouTube. So without further ado, let's get it. Now, before we get into this video's topic, I need to address one big elephant in the room, which is where the have I been these past couple of years? A little over 2 years ago, I had uploaded a video tutorial, and I did not expect for it to do quite as well as it did. A lot of you told me you got a lot of value out of it, asked me where I've been these past couple of years, when I would come back to uploading more videos. And I just want to thank all of you who stuck around, who liked the video, who subbed, who shared. It goes a long way and it means a lot, so I just want to say thank you for that. So, to the topic at hand, what do I mean when I say that art YouTube can be trash? Well, it's pretty straightforward. There's a lot of content out there that's good for you. There's a lot that's bad for you. There's a lot that's useful, but it's not useful to you because you're not at the proper stage yet. And if you're a beginner, you don't know what you don't know. How do you avoid the trappings of social media when creators are incentivized to grab your attention? What do they do with your time once they have your attention? Do they treat it with respect? Is what they say actually useful to you? Do you know what's useful? We're going to tackle these things. I am not here to call out anybody specifically. I think that's kind of silly, but it may get a little bit spicy towards the end. However, I do want to offer you solutions, so stick around if you don't want to miss that. So during my hiatus, I conducted a few surveys of my audience. About 60% of you have been a practicing artist for over 6 years, and yet over 75% of you consider yourselves to be a student in training. Shout out to the 1% of you with the godly art skills. Now, this may not be the most accurate survey out there, but what this tells me is that a lot of you are spending a lot of time practicing, maybe on YouTube, and you're not getting the results that you want. You're still students, or at the very least not advanced, because if I'm being honest, no matter how good I get, I'm always going to consider myself to be a student of the craft. There's always more to learn. And that's not to mention that dang near half my audience is over the age of 25. Now, that's not a bad thing, but as you get older, your responsibilities are going to stack up. You may have a family to look after, kids maybe, definitely a job to work, at least one job, maybe 2 jobs. So being that full-time student is going to be a lot harder for you. Time is that much more precious to you, and you're not going to want to waste it on BS. Now, why is art YouTube trash? Well, one obvious reason is clearly oversaturation. You can be literally anybody and post videos online. So with the internet being open to everybody, how do you avoid that oversaturation diluting the overall quality? Well, you can't. It's inevitable. And so what happens is the blind end up leading the blind. To a degree, there is quality content out there, but you gotta wade through a lot of BS to find it sometimes. And if you're a beginner especially, in the midst of all that chaos, you're bound to lose your bearings at some point. And this brings me to the next issue, which has to do with frustration and impatience, often due to a lack of good information. Heck, it might even be good information, but it's lacking the broader context of a foundational understanding. For example, you might come across a really good video about some quick tips on color, but how useful is that to you now if you're at a stage where you don't understand forms and values? It's not going to be that useful yet. And if you're impatient, you may embark on a color journey without first understanding the values and forms. And you're not going to get very far because it's the values and forms that hold a piece together. It could exist without the color, but vice versa. It's hard for color to hold itself together without the value, with the exception of maybe surreal, abstract stuff, but clearly we're not talking about that. Which you may already know if you're getting feedback, which brings me to my next point, which is that YouTube in and of itself does not provide you with constructive feedback for you specifically. And without the direct feedback of somebody more experienced than you, it can be difficult for you to identify your specific weaknesses and how to address them effectively. It can also be difficult for you to hold yourself accountable to the things you need to do and to do enough of it. And that leaves you open to distractions. Now, Fun and games are cool, entertainment is fine, but do not mistake that stuff for good advice. Please don't. When you have a foundational understanding of the fundamentals like forms, values, colors, anatomy, composition, and so on, you don't need to rely on these quick tips on how to execute X, Y, and Z, because these fundamental skills transfer over to really whatever it is you need to do with the aid of something as simple as good reference. There are literally people out here who will tell you something like, let me teach you how to draw the dynamic figure without having to learn anatomy. So basically what they're saying is, let me teach you a thing effectively without helping you understand the thing effectively. Bruh, make that make sense. And there are plenty of other distractions too. Like, I know people lately are into these roasting videos, and if you're into that, I'm not gonna knock you for it. It's entertainment, I guess. Me personally, I don't get it. I feel like for me to sit here and just roast a bunch of you amateurs would be low effort and way too easy. I think I just roasted all of you. But on a serious note, if you're into that, I'm not gonna knock you for it. But I would say to make sure that you balance out the entertainment with the actual quality stuff that will help you get better. But one of my personal biggest peeves is the platitudes, the feel-good nonsense that people will tell you so you keep coming back. Now, in some cases, they actually believe what they're saying, and if that's the case, power to them. But in other cases, they're just afraid of being too honest. But in either scenario, it works against you because it's not based in reality. Now, one of the most irritating platitudes to me personally is this notion that art is not a competition. Well, if you're trying to get a limited job spot, of course, you're competing for that spot. If you're trying to stand out in a competitive marketplace, well, of course, you got to compete for attention. If you're on social media, you're competing to stand out in an algorithm. No matter what domain you enter in the arts, you're competing to some degree. And so why is it that people insist on this idea that art is not a competition? Now, I can talk forever about this, but for now, let's just say that for recent generations, there have been way too many people who are eager to be able to call themselves winners for simply participating, as well as way too many people not willing to call that out. And it does more to set people up for failure than success. In fact, I would go so far as to say that this culture of winning simply for participating is what has enabled people to be able to call themselves artists simply for typing in prompts to a machine that does all the work for them. It is at least in part because too many artists who came before us have done such a horrible job at defending the integrity of our craft for the sake of appealing to the emotions of people. And now these same people are afraid of competing with machines because, of course, there is no competition. But like I said, I can go on forever about this. So if you want me to make another video that goes into my thoughts on the foolery that is AI art, you can let me know below. So with all of that being said, how do we solve for these issues? How do we correct for the oversaturation of material, the lack of personal feedback, and the social media distractions? First, you may need to realize that you're not going to get everything you need just on YouTube. You will want to find a group of aspiring artists who have the same goals that you have. Where do you find that? Unfortunately, at this time, I do not have such a community. But what you could do is look for the artists that you look up to the most and see what they've got going on. Usually they have some kind of online community. Or if you're really serious, you can join some sort of atelier. It's probably going to be a lot more organized. So what do you guys think of my points? Do you agree? Do you disagree? Do you have more points to add? You could drop it all below. And if you enjoyed this video, don't forget to hit the like, the sub, share it if you want to, and I will see you all soon. Peace.